Hello everybody, thank you guys all for coming out here today. I'm just going to give a brief rundown of what the vigil is going to look like, just so we're all on the same page. So we're going to begin with like a background and then a few student speeches. We'll have some poetry. We're then going to transition into faculty speeches, and right after Professor Bushware's speech, we're going to have a moment of silence. Where, as you can see, there's a vase up here, and we're going to have 51 people bring like a white rose to honor each victim and kind of put it up inside the vase. And as this is happening, Rami will be like listing out the names of each victim who passed away. And it's like completely voluntary. Like, if you feel free to like just come up, take a rose, and put it in. It's not like anyone selected. And then right after that, we'll have more faculty speeches, statements from admin, and then we'll close and then have the Janaza prayer, which is set up over there. And then lastly, we're going to have a silent march to the arbor, showcasing the banner just so to raise awareness. And then we'll have a lunch at the MCC lounge afterwards. So feel free to join us for that. And so with that, I'd like to hand the mic to the fellow students who are waiting here to get started. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I'm going to be reading an ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. And do not say about those who are killed in the way of Allah, they are dead. Rather, they are alive, but you perceive not. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Sifia Hassan and I'm the Vice President of UCSB's Muslim Student Association. I just wanted to start off by thanking everyone for coming out here and contributing to this vigil. I know it's finals week and everyone has a lot on their plates at the moment, but it truly means a lot that you guys all came out and took time out of your day to be here for this event. The past few days have been heartbreaking for a lot of us. Last Friday, March 15th, an incredible tragedy took place in Christchurch, New Zealand, when an armed terrorist carried out a mass shooting at two local mosques, Masjid al-Nur and the Linwood Masjid. This slaughter of innocent lives was intended to be publicized, as it was live streamed by the murderer, with the intent of striking fear into people's hearts. For this reason, it's best not to fall into the trap of focusing our attentions on the killer and the details of his crime, but instead of the unfortunate victims of this tragedy. As of now, 51 innocent lives have been lost, while many more are still fighting to recover from their injuries. Now, more than ever, it is so important to realize that in this case, 51 is not just a number. These were people. Of the victims, there were young, innocent children with years of life still left to live. There were immigrants and refugees, brave souls with the courage to leave everything familiar to them and move to a whole new country in search of security and peace. There were parents, siblings, friends, all unique human beings who left their houses last Friday afternoon to congregate in peace, not knowing that they wouldn't be coming back. But in spite of this tragic event, in spite of all the darkness and sadness we've seen these past few days, I also see a silver lining. This is my third year at UCSB now, and also my third year of having the privilege of being on the MSA's board, and I can honestly say I've never witnessed our student community stand more united with this much support. We only received the news of this event Thursday night, and in the 72 hours in between stressing and cramming for finals, we were all able to organize this vigil. With the help and support of so many of UCSB's diverse staff and students, we were able to bring everyone together today to honor these victims. It is in this way that we can rebel. As scary as they may be, we cannot let mass killings like this intimidate us or divide us even further. Unfortunately, these tragedies are becoming a lot more common, and it is during these times we need to realize that before anything else, we are human first. And because of this, we should use these opportunities to build each other up and stand even more united against hatred against any person. And so for all this and more, I want to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who showed up and made this vigil possible. Your love, support, and condolences mean the world, and I couldn't be any more appreciative. Jazakallah khair. And now Saba will Saba will grace us with her poem. Hello everyone, my name is Saba Hamed, and today I will share a poem with you. It is titled We Shall Overcome, which is a song that was sung during the civil rights movement, and I personally received much inspiration from the African American community, which is consistently dehumanized, and yet they always stand tall. We shall overcome. Your violence has distanced you from yourself. Hate blackens your heart and will not touch mine. My heart will heal. Fear is built pebble by pebble. Love is built brick by brick. Do not think that you shall build the house I will live in. I choose. I decide. A man like you fears a woman like me, with strength instead of bones, with courage instead of muscles. A woman that knows that faith will uplift us, that we will stand tall, and we shall overcome. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Rami.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I would like to thank everyone for being here today, taking time out of your busy weeks in support of our community. We gather together today regardless of race, gender, or religion, but as mere human beings. Something chilling and earth-shattering took place in New Zealand on Friday, and as I was preparing for this speech, I found myself at a loss for words, because it is difficult to come up with meaningful words after an event like this, because words are simply not enough to convey the emotions and heartbreak that many of us might be feeling right now. But remaining silent and carrying on with our daily lives is unacceptable, and rather impossible for that matter. This vigil has many purposes. It is to remember and honor the 51 beautiful people in the world lost due to a monster. Not just 51 lives either, but 51 families, 51 friends, 51 dreams. Some of these martyrs included teachers, doctors, and kids who had their whole lives ahead of them. It is to gather with each other and unite as one as we offer sincere condolences for one another, as many people standing today are feeling sadness, anger, and confusion. It is to help relieve our heartaches and to show solidarity to all the families facing this tragedy. It is to admire the heroics of some of the martyrs who sacrificed their lives to save others. To admire the policemen and community members and doctors in New Zealand who rushed injured and wounded victims to the hospital in hopes of saving their lives. It is to admire the families and friends of the martyrs, as well as people all around the world who continue to remain strong and keep their faith as they struggle through some of these next few days, months, and years. For some of us, perhaps even most, we might find that there's a heightened sense of paranoia, discomfort, fear, and that the tragedies we face in our nation and across the globe could happen at any moment and any time. And as these feelings might grow, I ask you to remind yourselves of one thing, and that is love will always outpower fear. Love one another, learn to give a helping hand, be a good listener for your friends, be generous and open-minded, offer your time to those in need, and always make the most of every day, moment, and second. Because life is precious, and there are very few things more satisfying than giving and receiving love. I ask you to live a conscious life where corrupt leaders, fake news, and frivolous matters don't get in the way of what's true and deep. Don't let this fog up your reality. I ask you to live a life devoid of hatred and regret, but to live life to the fullest, and to live for and through one another, making the most of every opportunity. We were all put on this earth together. We can make this an amazing experience for all if we learn to love, care, and be kind to everyone. I find that in today's world, many people have different values, beliefs, and ideologies. However, as a human being, there is only one thing we can all agree upon, and is that there is a difference between good and evil. Good and evil things exist, and it is up to us on what we choose to stand by and value. It is our job to condemn all those who offer and contribute the evil in this world, and to encourage and support those who do good. We must align what we say we believe in with what we consistently step out and do. We must hold each other accountable for our actions and hold our leaders accountable for their actions as well. The act that took place in New Zealand was an act of pure evil and terrorism. There is no questioning this. The hopes of the murderer was to divide and create chaos among ourselves. But look at us now. We are all here together, all united as one. Although we can never bring back the lives that were lost, we can provide some form of justice by refusing to live divided and in fear. We can provide some justice by, rather than giving the terrorists attention, we give the victims and their families. We can provide some justice by becoming closer and more attached to one another for their strength in numbers and unity. We can provide some justice by demanding and insisting on reforming gun laws. How many more lives must be lost? We can provide some justice by learning from this and growing from it individually and collectively, in hopes of becoming stronger people. For those of you who believe in a higher power, and even to those that don't, just remember that it is not our job to understand why things happen in the world. The universe or God does not owe us that. It is important to step out and do your best every single day. I ask you to use this as fuel to become the greatest version of yourself, to step out into the world and help in any way, shape, or form. To do your part as a human in making this world a better place for us and for the generations to come. As the great Dr. King once said, we stand in this life at midnight, always on the verge of a new dawn. Thank you guys so much.
Assalamu alaikum, or peace be upon all of you. Thank you to everyone for coming out here today. Even though it's finals week, it truly means so much to our community to see all of you gathered here today. I can't put into words the effect this tragedy has had on me. Writing this speech was the hardest thing for me to do, despite my belief that it would be easy to voice my emotions. I don't even know where to start. I can begin by describing the grief of 51 lives that were lost, 51 people who had loved ones that cared for them, 51 different stories that needed to be told. In Islam, it is said that a person who is martyred in the path of Allah has his sins forgiven before the first drop of blood even hits the ground. These men and women were all innocent souls who were martyred at their most vulnerable moment, when they were standing in prayer with no way to fend for themselves. While we mourn their absence, our deceased brothers and sisters are probably having a better afterlife, enjoying the highest rank of paradise. Regardless of the goodness that this event has placed them in the afterworld, it does not justify their death. How could a human have the ability to commit such an atrocity? I do not know. To shoot at children, women, disabled men, and elderly without hesitation, without a flinch. To shoot an elderly man who welcomed him with open arms, his last words being, "Come in, brother." What did they do to deserve this much hatred? They were dreamers, refugees who came to New Zealand for a better life. They were newlyweds or engaged couples, parents, infants, doctors, students, daughters, sons, and friends. They were humans just like us, whose lives were all too precious to waste. How many attacks is it going to take us to understand that hatred only breeds loss? That separating each other into groups instead of standing together doesn't make any of us stronger? Today there are 51 that are dead in this incident. But around the world, in China, Burma, Syria, Palestine, and elsewhere, millions are dying every day as a cause of warfare. Millions we don't see and feel for. They simply become another number in the vast array of statistics. It is our responsibility to support and pray for all those who suffer around the world, not just for a selected few that make their way into the news. It saddens me to see the continuous disregard and underrepresentation of the Muslim community in media, politics, and society. The only time we make headlines is if the shooter was a Muslim. And almost instantly the screen is filled with words like jihadi, terrorist, Muslim shooter. However, when the shooter is not a Muslim, they're humanized by the media and described as either a mentally challenged individual or angelic boy who ended up killing 51 people, feigning ignorance with an "oh, what went wrong with our innocent child" narrative. But what about Mukad Ibrahim, the youngest individual of only 3 years old who lost his life at the New Zealand attack? An innocent child too young to even comprehend the reality of violence, hate crimes, and guns. Just imagine the fear, confusion, and horror of a 3-year-old at the sight of people screaming and bleeding and rushing past him minutes before he lost his own life. Why isn't this story talked about on the front covers of newspapers? If this attack had happened in any other community, it would be on the news for days and the heroes would be glorified tirelessly. But where are the heroes in our stories? Why aren't they being given the same attention? Husna Parvi, a 42-year-old woman, jumped in front of her wheelchair-ridden husband and sacrificed her life to save him. Naeem Rashid lunged at the shooter with no fear of death after his son was shot in front of his very eyes, only to lose his life as well. Why does no one talk about them? Are they not heroes as well? Do we not deserve to have the same recognition, the same glorification that they found others so worthy of? Why are some communities chosen to be recognized more than others? And why does it have to be the duty of us as individuals to showcase their stories when it should be the responsibility of the media? Although it's easy for us to focus on these dark and negative aspects during the times of difficulty, it's more beneficial to have a positive outlook and strategy that will reap goodness for us in future generations. Let us stand together and uplift each other not only during times of hardship, but also in our everyday lives. When we talk about minorities and when we talk about injustices, let's make sure to represent each and every single community that's struggling. The overwhelming support and love from the Santa Barbara community forms a silver lining and a ray of hope that humanity still exists. I went to sleep on Thursday with a heavy heart, only to wake up the next day with my phone flooded with condolences and support from friends, faculty, peers, and religious leaders. We grow stronger together, and it's heartwarming to see a perfect example of that today, where hundreds of us are gathered here during our most busiest time on such a short notice, only to uplift one another. This vigil was such an important part of our healing process, and it could not have been done without the help of so many organizations and individuals here today. I want to thank Vice Chancellor Klawoon and Dean Armistead for continuously reaching out to me and helping with the logistics of this event. I want to thank MCC Director Zavini for being so generous to provide us with the lunch afterwards. For Sean for helping us set up all this equipment on such a short notice. For Jasmine and the whole CAPS department, especially Janet and Seth, who were there for us when we needed them the most. To the various faith clubs that are out here supporting us, including Gatra Catholic and Hillel, thank you all so much. I want to thank Rabbi Goodman for his kind condolences and for his open arms, and to Noah for going out of his way to help us with this event. And lastly, I want to thank the MSA members and officers who put aside all their finals and studying just to come together to plan this vigil. So thank you to all of you who make this world a beautiful place. I'm so glad to be a part of this precious community. And next, we're going to have Professor Bashir come give us a speech.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa ta'ala barakatuhu. Greetings of peace, blessings, and mercy to everyone who's assembled here today. I teach African history and the history of Islam, and I'm going to just say a few words of reminder that come from the West African Islamic tradition. Any utility in the words come from people that I sat with and studied with, and only the inadequacies are mine. The topic of today's brief address is love. Because only love is capable of conquering hate. And the reminder comes from the Quran, the book brought by the Prophet Muhammad, believed by Muslims to be God's verbatim speech. And our reflection on love today begins with understanding both the sanctity of a human life and also the reason why the capacity for violence and bloodshed and hatred exists in the first place. The sanctity of human life is founded in the fact for Muslims that no other created thing is more honored in the sight of God than the human being. Every single time the Quran says that God loves something, the direct object of the verb to love is a human being, without exception. And when God tells stories in the Quran of how He made everything that's in the heavens and everything that's in the earth and whatever is between them, He always says that He created these things with an act of speech. Just as in the Bible, in the Quran, God makes with the word. He says in the book of Genesis, "Let there be light," and there is light. And in the Quran, it is said, إِذَا قَدَ أَمْرًا فَإِنَّمَا يَقُولُ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونُ. When He wants to decree a matter, He has only to say unto a thing, "Be," and it is. But speech is an act of discourse, separating the speaker from that which is spoken, and this is not, in point of fact, the way that God creates the human being in the Quran. When God makes the human being, He takes the dirt of the earth and He molds it with His own two hands to erect the figure of our forefather Adam. He is telling you that there is an intimacy with the human being that exists for no other category of creation. Then when He breathes life into this lifeless form, again, it is not an act of speech, but rather He breathes of His own spirit into the human form in order to animate it. The story of mankind's creation in the Quran is a love story. And understanding the value of a human life comes with comprehending this tremendous act of love that is the creation of the human being. Everything else is made with speech, but we are made with a caress and we are animated with a kiss. Does He not love us? But there is a darker side of that same story. In that same moment that the breath is breathed into the lifeless form of Adam to awaken him, another being that is given free will is witnessing. And when the angels are compelled to bow before the form of this noblest of God's creations, Adam, the angels all comply, but this other being that is in attendance refuses. In the Arabic language, we call him the shaitan. You might have heard of him under the name Satan or the devil. And in that moment when he refuses to bow, he marks himself as the first racist in history. He marks himself as the ideological forefather of a man who walked into a mosque and shot the place up out of hatred. He refuses to bow to this most noble creation, which is every last one of you, and says, "I'm better than him. You made me from fire, you made him from clay." And he refuses to bow. Every time and in every place that we see the expression of hatred based on one's physical composition, one's origin, one's ethnicity, one's tribe, we are seeing the living expression of Satan's own religion. It is not part of the nature of human beings to divide ourselves in this way. Why? In West Africa, one of the great West African scholars, his name was Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, he offers a reminder about how we struggle against racism. He says racism is just part of a broader sin that is identified as istikbar or kibr, arrogance or pride of origin. He says, we seek refuge. He said, never forget that this is what brought low the cursed devil. We seek refuge in God from both of them, from arrogance and also from the devil. He said, the cure is to contemplate your body and how it was created. You begin your life as a nasty drop of sperm. You live your life as a walking sack of feces, and you end your life as a corpse, odious and rotting. You are all the children of Adam, and it is from dirt that you were created. What kind of sense does it make for beings made of dirt to rank one another hierarchically above other beings made of dirt? The Quran reminds us over and over again that we were brought out of this earth and we will be put back into it. Nothing whose condition is that fragile and that weak should ever be guilty of the sin of pride. The word came down heavy with that one. When we understand that racism in all of its forms is an attack that has been formulated against us by mankind's oldest enemy, then we realize that we are united and must be united in our struggle against it. In the manifesto of this particular shooter, this particular devil, because the Quran tells you that there are devils from amongst human being and from amongst jinn, which is the breed that the shaitan comes from. And all the devil is a person who has given up the quest for light and embraced the darkness. That in the manifesto of this particular individual, he cited the President of the United States as an inspiration for white nationalist identity. In the Quran, as in the Old Testament, the people of righteousness are forced by circumstance to speak a word of truth to those in power. When Moses went with his brother Aaron to Pharaoh, he was afraid. Two individuals weak in political power were being asked to confront the most powerful tyrant on the face of the earth. But they were given counsel as to how to do it. In the Quran, it is said, go to him with a gentle word. Perhaps he will be reminded. Even Pharaoh is do that. So we come with our gentle word and our faithful reminder that we will not stand idly by as racism and white supremacy tears this country and tears this world apart. Understand that white supremacy is the greatest historical expression of Satan's own religion. You can clap for that one. And we will be called to account not only for what we did during this time of tribulations, but for what we left undone. The Prophet of Islam said, if you see an injustice, stop it with your hand. And if you are incapable of stopping it with your hand, then speak against it with your tongue. And if you fear for your life in speaking against it with your tongue, then at least turn your heart against it. That is the least that can be accepted of a human being. We will not stand idly by as devils tear this world apart. We will instead honor our singular, noble, and simultaneously humble ancestry as the children of Adam and Eve, all of us. We will stand arm in arm united, and we will spread love in the face of hate. Why love? Because love is the very reason why a disobedient being that was capable of shedding blood and causing so much mischief was made in the first place. When the angels were commanded to bow to the form of Adam and told that Adam was to be given charge over everything in the earth, they said, will you create something that's going to cause mischief and shed blood in the earth? And God said, I know and you know not. Why create a disobedient being? Why create something that's capable of this kind of atrocity? The answer that I'll humbly submit to you, brothers and sisters in humanity, is that it was below and beneath God's dignity to love something that was forced to obey him. That the very reason why free will, which comes with hatred, which comes with bloodshed, which comes with chaos, exists in the first place, is to put something in the earth that was capable of being a recipient of divine love. That's also why we are singled out as the unique recipients of that love in the book that Muslims believe to be God's verbatim speech. So we will counter satanic religion by fulfilling the purpose for which we were made, which is we will bring love into this world. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, you will not enter heaven until you have known faith, and you will not have known faith until you have loved one another. He continued, shall I tell you a thing that if you did it, you would love one another? They said, yes. He said, spread peace. By the one who holds my soul in his hand, you will not spread peace until you are merciful and compassionate. His companions and disciples responded to him, we are merciful and compassionate. And he responded to them, it is not mercy and compassion amongst yourselves, but it is mercy in general, it is mercy in general, it is mercy in general. This religion that I accepted at the age of 15 years old, which is mocked and derided as a religion of violence, is in fact a religion of love and a religion of peace, that tells a story of one single human family, not separated by black skin, white skin, brown skin, red skin, or any other kind. A common origin and a common destiny. And if we struggle arm in arm to love one another, then we will be the instruments by which a divine wish is fulfilled and hatred is ultimately extinguished from the earth. Love one another. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I've been asked to initiate a moment of silence for the victims. For those of you who know Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, please feel free to repeat it to yourself silently 11 times. This is the traditional prayer for the souls of the deceased. For those of you who are not praying, send your very best thoughts and wishes, not only to the victims themselves, but especially to their families. The trial is hardest for those of us that are left behind. And I'll close the moment of silence by sending blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin al-Fatih lima bulak wal khatimi lima sabaq ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي لصراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمته يا أرحم الراحمين. I'm going to let Brother Rami come.
Thank you, Professor, for those beautiful words. So at this moment, I'd like to kindly ask some of you in attendance to make your way towards either side of the stage, and we will be handing you a flower to put in the vase as I name each martyr one by one. We'd really appreciate that. Thank you. So, the first name, Dawood Nabi, 71 years of age. He was the brother in front of the mosque that greeted the murderer with "Hello, brother," and was shot. The second, Naeem Rashid. Third, Taha Rashid. The fourth, Muqad Ibrahim. Sayyid Milne, Khalid Mustafa, Husna Pelvin, Farhaj Ahsan, Aya Elaine, Saeed Jahandad, أمجاد حميد، حسين القمري، موسى باتيل، أريب أحمد، Linda Armstrong, Suhail Sahid, Osama Adnan, Hamza Mustafa, Khalid Hassan, Harun Mahmoud, Basil, Ali Aisa Houri, Mohsin Al-Harbi, Arif Vora, Rami Vora, Ali Al-Madani, Muhammad Imran Khan, Lidik Abdul Hamid, Mujamil Haq, Muhammad Omar Farouk, Uzair Kadir, Tariq Omar, Hussein Mustafa, Abdul Qasim, Kamil Darwish, Zishan Raza, Ghulam Hussein, Karam Dibi, Abu Qadir Elmi, Amjad Hamid, Ansa Al-Bivi, Ashraf Al-Masri, Ashraf Ali, Munir Sulaiman, Husna Ahmed, Junaid Ismail, Mahbub Khurar, Muhammad Abdul Samad, Ahmed Abdul Ghani, this moment, if we could all share a moment of silence. Thank you guys. At this moment, I'd like to welcome a guest speaker from New Zealand that has a few words to share with us.
Kia ora tātou whānau, that is Māori words from New Zealand, saying hello to all of you, my family. Whānau means family. And that's where we are today, and that's how we are, my husband and I and my sister-in-law, my husband and I arrived on Thursday for 2 weeks holiday here, and heard this tragic, traumatic, heartbreaking, unbelievable news. A Māori word for sorrow and condolences is aroha mai, and aroha comes from the heart. So aroha mai to all my Muslim brothers and sisters, and for the rest of you that are here. Aroha nui means lots of love from my heart. 9/11. My mother and I were in Auckland, New Zealand, and we heard the news and we saw what you all saw on TV, this tragedy that just kept on repeating in front of our eyes, that we were just so shocked and stunned that this could happen. And my mother, 2 days after 9/11, felt that the community, in their grief and their powerlessness, maybe needed to do something and had a need to do something. And so she walked 4 blocks and hand-delivered letters into the letterboxes, inviting people to a vigil like this. And here I am today, all this time after, other side of the world, hearing the news of this atrocity that has happened in my homeland, and I'm here at a vigil. Synchronicity in all of that, and heartbreaking synchronicity. I cannot say enough or share enough of my sorrow for those that have passed and the loved ones that are left to deal with this grief and this trauma and this shock. And to a degree, New Zealand will never be the same. Actually, this is our first terroristic attack. And what was in the manifesto was that he chose our country because we're so far away and we're a peaceful, living people, as an example that none of us are beyond being touched. For that, I have a lot of anger and a lot of things that I and a lot of us will have to work through. I'm incredibly heartwarmed by our Prime Minister and all that she is doing. The first responders that were there at that time to see the horrific things that they saw. For the community down there that have come together to help. And some of you may know the history of Christchurch, but 10 years past we had horrific, life-changing earthquakes there. Many people were killed, but Christchurch is still rebuilding their lives after all of that, and here they are now having to group together and try and get through this time. I just wanted to thank you for this vigil. I wanted to thank you for taking time to be here, and thank you for the solidarity that I feel. And I wanted to end with a lament to let you know that for Māori people, when they are greeting each other for the first time or saying hello, they perform a hongi, and a hongi is the pressing of the forehead and the nose to each other, and it's held there. And it's a symbol and it's an act and a ritual of meeting of minds and the sharing of breath. And in a marae, which is like a meeting place or a reservation for Māori, when our loved ones have passed, they will hongi the deceased. And they will press their foreheads against the forehead of that loved one that's gone and share breath, feeling that the breath is not reciprocated, and it is a way of coming to terms with the passing of that loved one. So today, a spiritual hongi to you all, a meeting of minds and a sharing of breath in my words, and to those who have passed, a pressing of my forehead and the unreciprocated breath, recognising the passing. This is just a brief lament that would be sung at all funerals. We call them a tangi, but a funeral up and down the country. Bakaria mai tauri pekakio tia homai raroto i te po ki kona au titiro atuai ora mate he o koe no hoai wakaria mai tauri pekakio tia homai raroto i te po ke kona au titiro atu ai ora mate he o koe no hoai ora mate he o koe no hoai Amine. Kia ora tātou.
And now I would like to have Professor Feinstein please come up to give a speech.
Okay. I'd like to first thank the MSA for allowing me the time to speak with you all today. First and foremost, I'd like to express my most heartfelt and genuine condolences to both the Muslim community here at UCSB and the Muslim community worldwide. I'm confident that people of goodwill from all walks of life will support you in this time of tragedy. Looking around, I can say I'm a bit older than most all of you, and I agree completely with all that we've heard about love as a solution to hate today. But I'd like to speak for a few minutes about a complementary approach, not a replacement, not an alternative, an additional approach. As a young boy in the 50s and 60s, I grew up in an environment rife with ethnic and religious tensions. At home, in a neighbor's home, on the schoolyard, everywhere. And with this came distrust, and occasionally it elevated to hate. It was a time when it was socially acceptable to use some of the most vulgar words imaginable to describe others who were different, and perhaps worse, of appalling stereotypes that were widely accepted as factual. I remember plenty of violence on my schoolyard. As an adolescent, I remember hate and more hate cascading to the point that the National Guard was deployed in full combat gear in an American city just 12 miles from my middle school. Just when things were hitting bottom, a new perspective emerged among young people, and I'm targeting all the young people here, mostly high school and college age people. A perspective that is often simplistically characterized, perhaps nostalgically these days, as naive love to all. But at its core, this new perspective of young people was one of tolerance and acceptance toward one another, that all people had the right to worship as they wished, to believe as they wished, to act as they wished, so long as they didn't impose their beliefs on anyone else's rights. That we should celebrate all our people and our many differences. And at the same time, a wonderful sense of a greater community developed. These perspectives grew and grew over the ensuing decades. Incrementally, most all of society grew more tolerant and even respectful of our differences. These enlightened viewpoints became solidified in both everyday practices and the law. And together with many other fundamentally important social movements underway at the same time, major social progress occurred. Doors opened for members of previously marginalized communities. And importantly, it became disrespectable to speak and act in those antiquated, despicable terms of my childhood. Major progress was underway. Unfortunately, recent years have been a setback. Factual data reveals unequivocally that hate crimes are on the rise. Is there a solution? I would like to suggest to you that there are at least two keys to confronting hate, and young people play a central role in both of them. First is simple knowledge and increasing interpersonal interactions. People from all communities need to mix and interact much more than we are doing presently. We all need to get out into our larger community, into schools and churches and synagogues and mosques, into youth sports and youth organizations of all kinds, to work on a regular basis with young people and children. Anyone who doesn't recognize the importance of positive role models for children doesn't understand human beings very well at all. How influential would it be for a youngster from any community, minority or majority, to have a friend and a role model from another community? Someone presenting a kind, helping hand of friendship, enabling an impressionable child to see the other as a real person, other than simply buying into stereotypes. My experience, both as a faculty member here at UCSB for over 30 years, and as a baseball coach for dozens of Little League baseball teams over the years, is that direct interactions with people from other groups is extraordinarily powerful. It can greatly influence a young person's evolving ideas. The second route to confront hate is even more obvious. We must all support one another and stand up for one another, as several previous speakers have spoken to. It seems very simple. Any attack on any group, be it defined by religion, race, creed, gender, lifestyle, or any other criteria, is an attack on us all. And it doesn't matter whether it comes from a neighborhood kid or the hallowed halls of our government. Hate requires a concerted, communal, peaceful, and powerful response, not just in words, but in action. Attend vigils such as we're at now. Participate in peaceful counter-rallies. Work on electoral campaigns. Hate must be confronted with solidarity. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. It's also how democracy works. I will conclude my remarks by reciting a very short and well-known text that was composed by a German pastor, Martin Niemöller, in his recollections of World War II. He wrote this in 1946. He expresses an even more practical perspective about solidarity and unity. He wrote, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." So we're in this all together. We must all confront hate together. And I'll close by saying I once again send my condolences to everybody, and that I hope for a brighter future for all of us and our children and our children's children and far beyond that. Thank you again for giving me a chance to speak.
We would now like to invite up Vice Chancellor Margaret Clawoon to say a few words at the podium.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking the time to come and join this important vigil. I also want to thank the previous speakers for your powerful words. It's been an honor to be here. This May marks 5 years since the 2014 tragedy in Isla Vista. As a community that knows the profound impact of hate armed with guns, we at UCSB also know how important it is to stand with and for each other at moments when hate threatens. Whether it is sexism as it was in Isla Vista in 2014 or Islamophobia as it is today, we need to speak up and to speak out against intolerance. I am honored to stand with the UCSB community, and especially with our Muslim Student Association and with our Muslim community today, to show solidarity against Islamophobia. We have work to do here to make sure our Muslim students, faculty, and staff can thrive. I realize that it is not just about the extreme manifestations of Islamophobia, but it is also about how welcomed and how supported our Muslim community is every day at UC Santa Barbara. I know we need to make progress on the everyday needs of our Muslim community. Thank you to Huda and the MSA for leading this gathering. I look forward to continuing to work with you here at UCSB. Today, we are sickened by the violence that took 51 lives during prayers at 2 mosques in Christchurch. We pray for the recovery of those who were wounded and for the healing of those who lost family members and friends. I also want to honor the heroism of Abdul Aziz, the father of 4 sons who attacked and chased the gunman in the Linwood Mosque and is credited with saving countless lives. Many of us have not been tested in the way Abdul Aziz was, and his bravery is a testament to the strength that humans can muster. Even as his sons called for him to retreat to safety, he continued to go after the gunman and stopped the shooting and any further attack. The beauty of his action is an inspiration, even as we only hope that we have a little bit of that courage. For all of us, there is action we can take every day. We can refuse to give hate any cover. We have to speak up against each instance, and we have to show up for each other. We need to counter the white supremacist ideology that fueled this horrible attack. No excuses and no tolerance can be given to white supremacy, and we are seeing the danger in allowing even its smallest manifestations to pass. Our voices are important, especially when we join together to collectively denounce white supremacy. I hope that the United States can follow the steps that New Zealand is taking so that it will not be so easy for those who want to commit terrorism in the name of hate to get weapons. But for today, the most effective and most important step now is to spread love. The Persian poet Hafez reminds us, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And as we stand here today in this beautiful Santa Barbara sunlight, let's take our cue and let our love blaze forth. Thank you.
Next, we'd have to Next, we'd like to have Dean Armistead come up and share a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was really humbled when MSA asked me to speak. And those of you who know me might be surprised to hear that I was speechless. I really don't know what to say. I've been on this campus for 28 years. I've been the dean for a few years. I don't even know how long. And I've had the pleasure of working closely with our students, especially student leaders. And I am humbled by them every day, by how smart, how brilliant, how loving, all the amazing things that they accomplish. And this vigil is an example of that. They worked miraculously to pull this together. Thank you all for being here to support them, to support each other, to support all of us. This hurts. I'm grieving. As a mom to 23,000 students, as a colleague, as someone who has Muslim friends, I'm looking for hope. I see that in all of you. Thank you, MSA. Thank you all for being here. And let's keep spreading the love. Thank you.
We would now like to welcome Zvini Khan to say a few words.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you all. Let's remember them again. 3-year-old Muqad Ibrahim, the youngest of the 51 victims, was also the youngest child of Somali refugees who came to New Zealand seeking a safe haven. His brother, Abdi, described him as playful and liked to smile and laugh a lot. Haji Daud Nabi was the oldest of the victims. He was 71 and a grandfather. Junaid Motara was 35. He was the breadwinner of the family, supporting his mother, his wife, and 3 children. He was an avid cricket fan, just like my own brothers. Husna Ahmed was 45, and she was originally from Bangladesh. Farhaj Ahsan was 30. He left behind a wife, a 3-year-old daughter, and an infant son. Husna Parveen, 42, was trying to shield her husband, who was in a wheelchair. They were fathers, sons, brothers, grandfathers, mothers, and children, deeply loved human beings. We must celebrate their lives in the midst of this grief. Adding to the voices before me, I too strongly condemn this horrendous violence towards Muslims, and once again state that this is a result of Islamophobia and anti-Muslim sentiment. Let me repeat this again. This is a result of Islamophobia. As we all know, this kind of violence and hatred is not directed towards Muslims alone, but towards other religious communities, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, to name a few. We stand here today with heavy hearts and deep sadness. We must condemn again and again these senseless acts of violence and the ideology behind it. We must also condemn hate speech and weaponized speech. It is cowardly. We are here, also gathered here today. Because we are stronger together and know collectively that we have the power to disrupt, call out hate in all its forms towards marginalized religious communities, as well as marginalized Black, brown communities. We are one in this together. I'd like to conclude by a quote by Martin Luther King. He stated that whenever we compromise with a lie about who people are, we empower the forces that divide us. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Chancellor Henry Yang to the podium to say a few words.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for such a passionate, heartfelt turnout. I join all of us today to mourn and remember the 51 killed and 50 injured in Christchurch, New Zealand last week in an extreme act of violence targeted in their mosques at the most vulnerable and the holy time of Friday prayer. The impact of this horrible attack halfway around the globe reverberates on our campus. We denounce this vicious act of hate and stand in solidarity with our Muslim community here on this campus and all of us across the nation and the globe who are feeling deep hurt, fear, and grief. We united to provide comfort and to help heal these wounds for our students, our staff, and our faculty, and all of our community members impacted by this senseless tragedy. In the wake of the extraordinary and unthinkable tragedy, we gather to offer our support and to show our resolve. We stand unyielding against the violence and the prejudice and reaffirm our strong and unwavering commitment to kindness, respect, acceptance, and inclusiveness. Thank you to our Muslim Student Association and to our students, faculty, staff, administrators, alumni, and friends who are upholding the value we hold dear and as a community: tolerance, civility, compassion, and love. Let us lean on each other today and take good care of each other in the days and weeks ahead. Let us also strengthen and rededicate ourselves to our mission of fostering a living and a learning environment that embraces our differences with open minds and open hearts, making each member of our community feel comfortable, cared for, and above all, safe. Thank you.
And
lastly, we'd love to have Brother Whale come up to end this series of speeches with a small dua or prayer where we kind of ask God to like forgive the sins and to place the victims in the highest rank. So, Brother Whale.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you all those who are coming, and thank you for MSA. I want to start by reciting this verse from the Quran that the God says, Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. Allah says, we have created you male and female, and we have created you nations and tribes so as to know each other. So this is the wisdom of God, that He created us differently. This is to cooperate with each other. This is to live with each other. This is to know how to live and coexistence with each other peacefully. So we have been asked also by the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, that he says, الناس سواسية كأسنان المشط لا فضل العربي على أعجمي إلا بالتقوى. Prophet of Islam says, all people in the eyes of Allah are equal, and all of them are of the same status. There is no person is better than person except by the person who are really pious to God, who really loves his brother in humanity, who really loves and respects the other's rights to live and to enjoy with this life. So we will dua inshallah, and we will make dua asking Allah and sending this dua and asking God to shower the brothers and sisters who really passed away in this event. So I ask all of you to raise hand and make dua with me inshallah to Allah to shower those who passed away. And we say, يا رب لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Allah, oh Allah, forgive them and strengthen them. Oh Allah, I ask you to say Ameen, please. Oh Allah, forgive for those who passed away in New Zealand. Elevate their status among those who are guided. Send them a long path of those who came before, and forgive them and light their graves. O Allah, we ask you to enlarge their graves and to save them from punishment. نسألك يا ربي أن ترفع درجاتهم في المهديين، وأن تخلفهم في عقبهم في الغابرين، وأن تغفر لنا ولهم يا رب العالمين، وأن تفسح لهم في قبورهم وتنورهم لهم فيها يا أرحم الراحمين. O Allah, forgive them and have mercy upon them. O Allah, give them strength and pardon them. O Allah, be generous to them and cause their entrance to be wide, and wash them with water and snow and hail. O Allah, cleanse them of their transgression if they have. The white cloth is cleansed of stains. O Allah, give them a abode better than their abode, and a family better than their families. O Allah, let them entering the paradise and save them from the punishment of grave and hellfire. O Allah, we ask you, those who passed away, they were your servants and the child of your servants, and you are not need of their punishment. So we ask Allah to shower them with mercy and to shower their families with patience, inshallah. If they were pious, increase their reward, and if they were transgressor, please Allah pardon them. thank you, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us all and to shower us with mercy, inshallah. And thank you for coming, and thank you for MSA.
And now we'll be having a janazah prayer over there. This is typically the prayer that we do for funerals.